Good evening, everyone. I'm calling the Committee on Audit and Compliance to order. We will take the following items up for approval. Action item 1A is the approval of the minutes of the April 3rd, 2024 meeting. I move the approval of action item 1A. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimously approved. Policy calendar. I would now like to address action item 1B, the policy calendar. Item 1B1 is a resolution to approve fiscal year 2024 external audit plan. The university's external auditor, Grant Thornton, meets with management and those charged with governance each year to review and discuss the proposed audit plan. This plan includes the scope, areas of focus, and timing of the financial statement and federal program audits. The university requests that the Board of Trustees approve the fiscal year 2024 external audit plan presented by Grant Thornton LLP. I'd now like to turn it over to Claire Eston, partner at Grant Thornton, to provide a presentation summarizing the fiscal year 2024 external audit plan. Claire?
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm here with two of my colleagues, Osama Tariq, who's a senior associate on the audit engagement team, and then Dennis Marone, who is our national managing partner for our higher education and not-for-profit practice. So, as Chair Kim alluded to, our objective today is to share our audit plan for FY24. We have worked with management discussing the unique circumstances that might drive some changes to the audit approach this year. At a high level, you've had the material in advance, and I would say there's nothing new and unusual at a very high level that's going on this year that's going to impact our audit approach from prior years. This year, we are focused on the timetable and making sure that we're done in accordance with the schedule. I feel very good with the progress that we've made so far in discussions with management, and I also feel good about what management is doing thus far to ensure success in that area. Other than that, I know we have these materials to go through, but I know the fact that you've had them in advance, I wasn't planning on spending too much time in any particular area. Again, the timetable is, as we've all discussed and committed to. The areas of focus are essentially the same as what they've been in the past. There's nothing new and different, no new GASB accounting pronouncements, no new disclosures to address this year. So we really will be able to just focus on grinding through the audit process as we have in the past. Just trying to see if there's any other highlights to pick up. The only other thing I'll mention is this year we are back to, I would say, the kind of pre-COVID, quote-unquote, normal area of focus on the single audit, the major program being student financial aid. So we won't be having to test the Educational Stabilization Fund, or HERF, this year. And I think everybody's probably, well, it would be nice to have the money, but on the other hand, it's nice to not have to go through the audit again. And I guess I would say that's a very brief summary of our audit plan. Those are the required communications that I wanted to go through today. If anybody has any questions on the audit plan and scope, I'm happy to address those questions today. Yes.
First of all, I'd like to say that this is a really interesting report, especially the thought pieces, and I wish we did have an hour to spend on this. Particularly, I think that the training and educational piece, I think, is something that we should take a look at. There's a lot of this. Really, this is very interesting.
Thank you.
I noticed on page 8, you spoke to the issues of valuation of investments and reporting, financial reporting to the appropriate committees. And I would really like to see what you recommend this coming year when you look into that, because that's an area where I think I think we do real well in terms of our investment performance, but I think we don't necessarily do as well in terms of reporting some of the areas that you highlight about expenses and the programmatic expenditures. I mean, spending of endowment funds for the purposes. Similarly, you've got material later on page 34 about spending rates and sort of the items that are between the beginning of the year balance of your investments and the end of the year balance of the investments. One element is the growth, but there's also the spending, and then there's the fees and expenses and so forth. And I think I would be very interested if you think we're doing best practices in terms of our reporting. I think we have a really good investment program, but I think our reporting could be improved.
I will take note and follow up at the end of the audit. Thank you. We do have Dennis here to talk a little bit about some of the industry trends that are in the back half of the materials. So if there are no other questions on the audit scope, I will hand it over.
I do have one question.
Of
So
course.
relative to where we've been in the past 2 years at this stage, where do you think we are?
I would say ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. It's still early, so not leaps and bounds ahead, but I think already ahead of where you have been in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Certainly my pleasure to be with you. I want to just provide a little bit of a perspective in terms of what's happening across the higher education landscape. As the gentleman had mentioned, hopefully you've all had a chance to maybe look at some of these materials in great detail that we've provided to you. We work with a lot of colleges and universities of all different shapes and sizes from across the nation. And in my role, I have the opportunity to meet with our clients, to meet with the boards, finance committees, audit committees of the institutions of higher education that we serve. So I get some perspective and I'm able to accumulate some insights and some trends about what we're seeing across the sector. It's been anything but a normal year for colleges and universities, to say the least. And as we finally crawl our way out of the COVID, really what we find, it's a kind of a tale of two realities. Some institutions that were really struggling, whether they be public or private, prior to the start of COVID, have come out feeling this continued strains. Those that went in pretty strong, well-positioned, strong brands continue to reinforce that market standing presently. So if you've had a chance to look at the slides, we've included a lot of information. And I just wanted to give you just a brief perspective, a primer, if you will, about what you would find if you went through those slides in great detail. First, there's been some stabilization of the labor force. Certainly, institutions haven't had to deal with the challenges of the change that many institutions struggled with. And with those changes come competing priorities. Change management has been an issue. We have to reestablish trust with faculty, stakeholders, functional areas. And so we're seeing a little bit of a stabilization in that function across the sector now, which is kind of helpful. In terms of enrollment trends, I think the enrollment cliff is still coming. I think institutions need to prepare for that. I think the focus on the value of colleges and universities and that education continues to be at the fore, and I'll get into that a little bit further here in a moment. I think for most institutions, they're focused on reinforcing their balance sheets. They're levering down, reducing their debt. They're building up liquidity and cash balances. And for the most part, the cost reduction efforts that most institutions went through, there's really nothing more that can be done. I mean, institutions did what they could, they cut where they had to, and really what we're seeing is actually a little bit of a countervailing view, is that institutions are adding back budget. They're adding back budget to those areas of their operations, their institution, that make them demonstratively different than their peer institutions that they may be competing with for prospective students. And so the opportunities to really reduce costs are really not going to be available any longer. In terms of increases in tuition, just to give you some perspective here, overall undergraduate enrollment remains 15% below the fall of 2000 levels. That is very significant because not only does that put an additional strain on revenues, but it means that we're fighting for a limited cohort of students. And that's certainly going to put a lot of pressure on institutions and the various functional areas across the place. When we talk about inflation, and this is something that I think has been part of every conversation that I've had with finance and audit committee meetings, some institutions talk about inflation like it was a storm that passed and now it's over, and we can kind of go back to the norm. The reality is that those increases that we experienced over the past 3-4 years have now been baked into the base. And we cannot increase revenues, as we know, to catch up on that. And so we're continuing to lose ground. Even if we're able to pass along 3 or 4% increases in top line revenues, the cost of our personnel, food, fuel, services, insurance, benefits continue to rise, almost quadratic for some institutions. And so that has really put additional strains on the management team, on the finance functions, the fiscal leadership of the institutions that we're speaking with here. We can expect that there's going to be more legislative oversight. The form, the shape, the context, the type, I don't know. But I think it's fair to say that something's probably going to come down the pike. In the crystal ball that I consult, which is kind of the source of information and inspiration that I use, I think it's going to be more of a focus on post-graduation performance of graduates. Are they working in fields that they studied? To what extent are they able to have gainful employment to pay for their tuition and service their loans, et cetera? So I think we may see something like that evolve in due time over the course of the next several years. Institutions continue to be introspective, to focus on strategic planning, making sure that, to my earlier comment about redoubling their efforts about those areas of their institution that are most attractive, but they're thinking about existing programs, they're thinking about master campus planning, they're thinking about micro-credentialing, focusing on the lifelong learner, those individuals that started their education but did not finish it, and making sure that they create tailored programs to address that specific need of students. Just a few other items here. In terms of overall tuition increases, for private institutions, we're seeing about 3%. For public institutions, we're seeing about 2.5%. And the reason why I pause and say that very intentionally is that when we think about inflation, inflation has been on average over 6% over that same period. And so we know, to my earlier comments about the reduction of existing margin that we're contributing to, to our bottom line. And then I'd also mention that, there was about $120 billion of federal aid that was surged to colleges and universities during the period of COVID. That helped immensely. It helped us get through buttress balance sheets, make up for shortfalls. As Claire had mentioned, that money's gone. We're not seeing any new programs coming down the pike that will help organizations and institutions like CUNY, for example. One other data point that I think is important, especially for CUNY, is when we think about the cost of private institutions, juxtapose, say, CUNY, for example, we're seeing private institutions average total enrollment cost of roughly $60,000, right, when we look across the sector. And so a lot of parents, a lot of students are thinking hard about the value of that education and thinking about other options. Finally, here as I conclude, and this as I speak to the audit committee today, enterprise risk management continues to be an area of focus. And no matter where the institution was, with the help of internal audit, the help of others, certainly making sure that we have a fulsome inventory and risk register of all of the risks that are confronting the organization. And as we've seen over the past 4 years, what we thought was maybe a complete list turned out to be perhaps inadequate. And continuing to add risks to that register and making sure that we map them, people, process, weighting, and have a plan in place to react should they come to fruition, continues to be top of mind for audit committees as well as the leadership of the institutions that we work with. All of that and much more is included in this brief slide deck that we've included here. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Questions? Yes, sir.
A quick one.
Yes, sir.
Northeastern University has said they want to take over Marymount. They just think that the New York City market for adult learners is just delicious, and they want to come right in. Can you predict whether they're going to eat our lunch or not?
Yeah. That I'll have to consult my crystal ball.
Well, I noticed they're not one of your clients, so I'm not asking you to divulge any secrets.
We work with Marymount.
Marymount is.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Okay.
I will say, so I'm from Boston. I grew up in the shadow of Northeastern University, and they do have an interesting model for sure. New York is probably their 13th location domestically of creating these satellite campuses, but their model is very different, and it's proven successful for them. So we'll see. We'll see what the crystal ball says, but it's intimidating when they come into a new market for the other existing higher education organizations that are there.
Well, it would be interesting to know what this model is, because it seems like a crazy idea.
It's co-op.
It's co-op.
It's Ned. It's very simple. they have mastered that area of the market.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no better school that does it. I was in Boston for 38 years. And the quality of their students and the people they're producing today, and what better market to have a co-op program in than New York?
Yeah, and the relationships that they have with the corporations, too.
it's unbelievable.
It's very strong.
It's going to be a tough one.
One of my kids graduated from Marymount, and it's a wonderful school. The
Education's great.
Very solvent and has a great alum, a couple of very key alums. Russ, can't remember his last name at the moment, but major contributors. So they're in good shape. So they made a good deal, I think.
Quick question. So, here, the rating agencies, they all have different views, right? And so just in your opinion, which one's the most accurate?
I think it's really you have to pick and pull from each one of them. I tend to be a little bit more partial towards S&P. I know that team really well, and actually Claire and I spent some time consulting with them. I think their perspective is very rich and just informed by so many ratings that they do. So I tend to maybe gravitate more towards their direction.
Got it. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, thank you very much. I move for the approval of policy item 1B1. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? That is unanimously passed. With no more policy items on the calendar, I'm sorry? Oh, yes, we will move to the information items, but to do this, we're going to go into executive session, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
You guys can go to finance.
You go to finance?
You can go to finance, Sandra. If you'd like to. You can go to finance if you want to. We've already voted, so we don't.
Oh, good, more lawyers.
If you want to go into the finance.
Bar pass is important. We all need to.
Well, I kind of wanted to stay here, but,
Okay, you can stay. John Verzani's over there.
okay,
So
yeah.
you can stay. Angela, you can stay or go.
No, I'll go for a little bit. Then
Yeah, okay, yep.
You're going to miss all the exciting things here.
You want me
No.
Let me just.
Well, don't we need to first go into executive session?
We need,
Yeah.
Angela, don't.
Wait, Angela, don't go yet, because then we need them to go into executive session. We didn't vote to. I didn't vote yet to discuss the first information item on today's agenda. We'll go into executive session in accordance with sections 105C and 105F of the New York State Open Meetings Law. Make a motion to move into executive session. Second, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? We are now in executive session. Thank you.